I never thought the day my own brother tried to kill me would start like any other Saturday morning. The sun was barely up, but my stomach already hurt with the kind of nervousness you get when something feels wrong. I grabbed a bowl of cereal, thinking maybe it was just the usual family chaos. "Morning, Danny," I said casually, trying to sound normal. My brother Jake didn't look up from his phone. His jaw was tight, his eyes dark. "Morning," he muttered, too quiet, too cold. I laughed nervously. "You okay? You look like someone just told you the world ended." Jake didn't answer. That should have been my first warning. 2 days ago, Dad had frozen Jake's account, all of it, every cent he'd been saving. He'd begged, pleaded, and even tried to lie, but Dad's decision was final. "You're not responsible enough," Dad said. "Until you learn, no money for you." Jake had stormed out that day, slamming doors like our walls would crack. I didn't think much of it. He was dramatic, but now I realized I had been naive. I spooned cereal into my mouth and swallowed. Something tasted off. Bitter, wrong, my throat tightened. My hands shook. Jake," I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He looked at me, smiling too calmly. "Relax, Danny, just breakfast." My stomach churned violently. I dropped the spoon. "Wait, what did you put in my cereal?" Jake's smile didn't reach his eyes. "It's nothing, little brother, just a little payback." My heart froze. I stumbled to the counter, gagging. The bitter taste spread. I knew immediately what he had done. Poison, my own brother, my blood, trying to kill me for money Dad had frozen. I ran. My legs felt like lead. My vision blurred. I made it to the sink, vomiting, and the world spun. "Danny, are you okay?" Dad's voice was distant, panicked. "Jake," he tried to. I barely managed to gasp. Dad grabbed my arm, dragging me to the couch. My vision was patchy. The room tilted. I could hear Jake laughing from the kitchen, low and menacing. That laugh would haunt me for months. I could have died that day. Every second felt like an eternity. But somehow, by some miracle, I survived. My body trembled, my head throbbed, but I was alive. And in that moment, lying on the couch, I realized one thing. Survival wasn't just luck. It was power. I glanced toward Jake, who was now sitting smugly at the kitchen table, scrolling through his phone. "You're lucky I didn't finish it," he said casually. "You think this is funny?" I croaked, my voice shaking with rage. "You tried to kill me, your own brother." Jake shrugged like it was nothing. "Dad taught me lessons the hard way. You'll understand one day." "No, Jake, you'll understand my way," I said, gritting my teeth. A cold fire ignited inside me. I didn't just want to survive, I wanted payback. Every sneer, every threat, every evil plan he had would come back to him. That night I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake in my room, listening to the creaks of the house, every sound making me jump. Jake's room was dark, but I knew he was awake too, planning, waiting. By morning, I had already made a plan. Surviving wasn't enough. He needed to learn that trying to harm family was the worst mistake of his life. And just like that, a war had begun in my own home. The first step, make sure he never suspects I knew exactly what he did. I smiled to myself, even though my hands still shook. He thought he had the upper hand. He was wrong, dead wrong. I woke up the next morning pretending everything was normal. That was the hardest part, acting like my brother hadn't tried to kill me. My body still felt weak. My stomach burned. But I forced myself to eat toast slowly, like nothing had happened. Jake sat across from me, tapping his phone. He didn't even look guilty. He looked bored. "You're up early," he said. "Couldn't sleep," I replied. I kept my voice calm. Inside, my heart was pounding. Dad walked in, coffee in hand. "Danny, how are you feeling today?" "Better," I lied. Jake smirked. "See, told you it was nothing." Dad frowned. "Nothing doesn't make someone collapse." Jake rolled his eyes. "You're overreacting, Dad. He's fine." I watched Jake carefully. His confidence scared me. People who feel guilty avoid your eyes. Jake stared straight at me like he wanted to see fear. I gave him none. After breakfast, Dad left for work. The door closed. The house went quiet, too quiet. Jake leaned back in his chair. You know, he said casually, Dad freezing my money really messed things up for me. I heard, I said. He laughed. Of course you did, you're his little favorite. That's not true. Oh, it is, he snapped. Then he smiled again, fast and fake. But don't worry, things will balance out. My stomach twisted. What do you mean? He stood up and walked past me, brushing my shoulder. You'll see. That was when I knew it wasn't over. The poison wasn't a mistake. It was a warning. Later that day, I locked myself in my room and searched everything online. Poison symptoms, delayed reactions, how people get caught, how people don't. I wasn't planning to hurt Jake, not physically. I wanted something better. I wanted him exposed. My phone buzzed, a text from Jake. Jake, feeling okay, bro? Smirking face. I stared at the screen, then I typed back. Me, yeah, guess I'm tougher than you thought. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. I smiled for the first time since it happened. That evening, Jake cooked dinner. That alone was strange, he never cooked. Dinner's ready, he called. I froze, my heart raced. Dad looked at me, you coming? I forced a smile, yeah. I sat at the table, staring at the plate. Pasta, steam rising. Jake watched me closely. Aren't you hungry? He asked. Actually, I said slowly, my stomach, still off. Doctor said I should avoid heavy food. Dad nodded. That's smart. Jake's jaw tightened. For a split second, the mask slipped. Then it was back. Suit yourself, he said. That night, I heard him packing in his room, back and forth, like a trapped animal. The next day at school, I couldn't focus. Every sound made me jump. Every laugh felt fake. I wondered how many brothers had smiled at each other while hiding hate. When I got home, I found my door slightly open. I never left it open. My room smelled wrong, sharp, chemical. My desk drawer was open. I checked my phone charger, my water bottle, everything. Nothing obvious, but I knew. Jake had been inside. At dinner, I acted cheerful. I told Dad jokes. I laughed too loud. Jake watched me like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Later, he cornered me in the hallway. Why are you so happy? I shrugged. Why not? He leaned closer. People who almost die usually aren't this calm. I met his eyes. People who try to kill usually aren't this obvious. His face went pale for half a second. You're imagining things, he said quickly. Maybe, I replied. Or maybe you should be careful. That night, I started recording everything. Conversations, texts, times he entered my room. I kept backups online. I wasn't paranoid. I was preparing. A week passed, then 2. Jake grew more aggressive. He snapped at Dad. He slammed doors. He whispered on the phone late at night. One evening, I overheard him talking in the garage. I told you it didn't work, Jake hissed. Yeah, I know, no, I'm not scared, I'll handle it. My blood ran cold. I backed away slowly, my hands shaking. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about control, ego, rage. That night, Dad knocked on my door. Danny, is something going on between you and your brother? I hesitated. Why do you ask? He's been acting strange, Dad said. And you're watching him like you're waiting for something. I swallowed. Dad, if I tell you something, you have to promise not to confront him yet. Dad's face grew serious. What did he do? I opened my mouth. Then I stopped. Not yet. Not until I had proof that would destroy every lie Jake ever told. I'll tell you soon, I said. I promise. Dad nodded slowly. Be careful. After he left, my phone buzzed again. Jake, you're taking too long. Me, for what? Jake, you'll find out. I sat on my bed, staring at the message, my heart racing. He thought he was hunting me. He didn't know I had already set the trap. I didn't sleep that night. Every time the house made a sound, my eyes flew open. The wind hit the window, footsteps creaked, pipes groaned. My heart reacted to all of it. At exactly 2, 17 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. You should have died. My hands went cold. I stared at the screen, my chest tight. I didn't reply. I took a screenshot and saved it to my hidden folder. Time, date, proof. A few seconds later, another message came. Unknown number. Dad picked you. Now you pay. I slowly turned my head toward the door. It was closed, locked, but I still pushed my chair against it quietly. In the morning, Jake acted cheerful, too cheerful. Morning, champ, he said, flipping pancakes like a TV dad. I watched him carefully. You're in a good mood. Why wouldn't I be? He said. Life's funny. Dad sat down. Jake, I got a call from the bank. Someone tried to access your frozen account again. Jake froze, just for a second. That's impossible, he said quickly. Must be a glitch. Dad narrowed his eyes. They traced the attempt to our home Wi-Fi. Silence. Jake laughed. Wow, technology these days. Dad didn't laugh. I lowered my head, pretending to focus on my plate. Inside, my mind raced. Jake was getting desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. At school, I felt eyes on me, not students, adults. A man stood near the gate, pretending to be on his phone. When I moved, he moved too. I ducked into the bathroom and locked myself in a stall. My breathing was loud, too loud. Was Jake watching me, or had he sent someone? When I got home, Dad wasn't there. Jake was. He sat on the couch, calm, relaxed, like a king on a throne. Sit, he said. I didn't move. He smiled. Relax. If I wanted you dead today, you wouldn't be standing. Why are you doing this? I asked. My voice cracked. I hated that it did. He stood up slowly. Because you took everything. I took nothing. You took Dad, he snapped. His trust, his money, his respect. That was your choice, I said. You messed up. He stepped closer, and now I'll fix it. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't look. Jake leaned in. Accidents happen all the time. Food poisoning, slips, fires. I swallowed. You won't get away with it. He chuckled. You think anyone will believe you? That night, Dad came home late. He looked tired, worried. Danny, he said softly, I need you to tell me what's going on. I opened my mouth. Then Jake appeared in the doorway. Everything's fine, he said quickly. Danny just stressed. Dad looked between us. Jake, go to your room. Jake didn't move. You froze my account. You don't get to control me anymore. Dad's voice hardened. Go, now. Jake glared at me before walking away. Dad sat beside me. I'm listening. I took a deep breath and showed him everything. The messages, the recordings, the timestamps, the screenshots. Dad's face changed. His hands shook. This can't be real, he whispered. It is, I said, and it's getting worse. Dad stood up. I'm calling the police. No, I said quickly. Not yet. He turned. Why not? Because he's planning something bigger, I said. If we move too fast, he'll run or hurt someone. Dad hesitated, then nodded slowly. That was the moment everything shifted. I wasn't alone anymore. But Jake sensed it. That night, the power went out. The house went dark. And from the hallway, I heard Jake laugh. The darkness was suffocating. I could barely see my own hands. The flashlight on my phone flickered, barely lighting the hallway. Every creak of the floorboards made my heart jump. Jake was somewhere in the house, I knew it. He always left signs, footsteps, whispers, that smug laughter. I moved silently toward the kitchen, trying not to make a sound. My plan was simple: gather evidence, stay alive, and turn the tables. But the more I moved, the more I realized how reckless he had become. He was sloppy, overconfident, and that was my advantage. In the kitchen, I opened the drawer where Dad kept the old home security recorder. I fumbled in the dark, finally managing to pull it out. The small screen glowed faintly as I powered it on. Footage from the past week flashed, Jake sneaking into my room, his face twisted in anger. Every movement, every whispered threat, every attempt to harm me was documented. I smiled. This was my weapon. My survival had been just the first step. Now it was payback time. Suddenly, a sound behind me made my stomach drop. A soft shuffle. I froze. "Jake!" I called, trying to sound casual. "Danny," his voice slithered through the dark. "You shouldn't be doing that." I turned slowly, keeping the recorder hidden. "Or what?" I asked. "Or you'll regret it," he said, stepping closer. The faint moonlight revealed his face, twisted with rage. I raised the recorder. "You already did regret it. You tried to kill me. And now, the proof is in my hands." His eyes widened for a split second. Then he laughed, a low, dangerous laugh. "You think that changes anything? I'll get what I want, money, Dad's respect, you'll see." I held my ground. "You already lost, and if you try anything now, the cops will know everything, all of it, every plan, every threat, every single thing you've done." He took a step back, face hardening. "You can't stop me forever." "I don't need to stop you forever," I said, voice steady. "I just need to survive long enough for everyone else to see the truth." Jake's breathing was heavy. I could hear his fists clench. For a moment, it looked like he might attack. Then, just as quickly, he turned and vanished into the darkness, leaving only silence behind. I sank to the floor, heart pounding, hands trembling. The recorder hummed softly in my lap. I had survived. I had evidence. I had a plan. But survival was only the beginning. The next day, Jake didn't speak a word at breakfast. He sat silently, staring at his untouched food, as though waiting for me to make a mistake. I kept my composure, smiling at Dad, joking about school, acting like nothing had happened. Inside, though, I was already plotting my next move. That evening, I left a hidden camera in the living room, facing the kitchen. Jake always went there at night to make his calls. I needed proof of his bigger plans. Hours later, I checked the footage. Jake was packing, phone in hand, whispering into it. "No mistakes this time. It has to work. I won't fail again." My stomach turned. He was planning something worse, something beyond just me. I backed away from the screen. My hands were shaking, but my mind was sharp. Survival had been my first victory. Now it was time for strategy. I pulled out my notebook and started planning every step. Every door, every hallway, every possible trap he could set, I mapped it all. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was preparing my revenge. And deep down, I knew one thing. The game had changed. Jake thought he was hunting me. He had no idea I had already set the trap. The war between us was just beginning. And by the time he realized, it would be too late. I started pretending to relax. That was the trick. When people think you're calm, they stop watching you closely. Jake stopped watching me the way he used to. He still hated me. I could feel it. But he thought the fear was gone. He thought he'd won the mind game. That mistake would cost him everything. I laughed more. I joked with Dad. I even asked Jake for small favors. "Hey, can you pass the salt?" "Jake, can you drive me to school?" He looked confused at first, then proud, like he was back in control. "You finally learned your place," he said one night. I smiled. "Guess so." Inside, I was counting his steps. I installed the last hidden camera in the garage. It faced the old tool cabinet where Jake always went when he was angry. I didn't tell Dad. Not yet. Dad knew enough to be careful, but not enough to panic. 3 days later, the camera caught everything. Jake was on the phone again. "I don't care how," he whispered. "An accident. Tonight or tomorrow, Dad won't suspect a thing." My chest felt tight when I replayed the clip. He wasn't just talking about me anymore. He mentioned Dad. That's when fear turned into something else. Anger. Pure, focused anger. That night at dinner, Jake suddenly stood up. "I'm going out," he said. Dad frowned. "It's late." Jake grabbed his jacket. "Relax, I'll be back." I watched the door close behind him. My heart pounded. Something was coming. I could feel it in my bones. I followed him. Quietly. I waited 5 minutes, then grabbed my phone and slipped outside. Jake was walking fast toward the old storage shed behind our house, the one Dad hadn't used in years. I stayed in the shadows. He unlocked the shed and disappeared inside. I crept closer and heard metal clinking, bottles moving, tools scraping. Then his voice. "Stupid old man," Jake muttered, "freezing my account like I'm nothing." I swallowed hard. He came out holding a small container. I recognized it immediately, the same kind he'd used before. My hands shook as I recorded everything. Jake turned suddenly. "Danny," he snapped. I froze. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he smiled, slow, dangerous. "So you were listening," he said. "Jake," I said, my voice barely steady, "stop this, please." He laughed. "You should have died when you had the chance." He stepped toward me. I stepped back. "You won't do it," I said. "You're not that stupid." "Oh, I am," he said softly, "because no one will believe you." A light turned on behind me. "Try me." Dad's voice cut through the night like a blade. Jake spun around. "Dad." Dad held up his phone. I heard everything, and I saw it. Silence fell heavy between us. Jake's face drained of color. "You were spying on me," Jake shouted. "No," Dad said calmly. "You were destroying yourself." Jake dropped the container. It hit the ground and cracked. Dad stepped closer. "I tried to protect you. I froze your money to teach you, not to create a monster." Jake backed away. "You chose him. You always chose him." "No," Dad said. "I chose life." Sirens wailed in the distance. Jake looked at me one last time. His eyes weren't angry anymore. They were empty. "This isn't over," he whispered. As officers stepped into the yard, I realized something important. Surviving wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the truth coming out. But there was still one secret Jake hadn't revealed. The air was heavy with tension, but finally the immediate threat was over. Jake was taken away by the authorities, his anger and plans laid bare for everyone to see. Dad's face was pale, worn with exhaustion, but there was relief in his eyes. He came over and placed a hand on my shoulder. "You were brave, Danny," he said softly. "You stayed calm, smart, and safe. You didn't just survive, you protected yourself and exposed the truth." I nodded, still trembling. My hands had recorded everything, my notes documented every step, and my quick thinking had kept me alive. Survival had been my first victory, but the satisfaction came not from what Jake had tried to do, but from knowing that I had taken control of the situation. I had turned fear into power. Over the next few weeks, life slowly returned to normal. Jake's anger was gone, replaced by silence and regret. Dad and I rebuilt trust, and the house felt safer, warmer. But the experience changed me. I realized how quickly people could turn on each other when greed and pride took over. And as I looked back, I knew one truth. Survival wasn't the end. It was the beginning of my ultimate payback. The lesson was clear. Never underestimate those you think are weaker, and never let fear control your choices. I had lived through betrayal, danger, and deceit, and I came out stronger. Jake had tried to destroy me, but in the end, surviving and using my mind wisely was the most powerful. Thanks for watching. Kindly drop your comment about this story. And please subscribe to this channel and on your notification for more interesting stories.